The camera flashes were blinding. Jayden Karr kept his head down as officers led him through the crowd of reporters, their questions coming like machine gun fire. "Did you assault her? How long has this been going on? What do you have to say to your accusers?" He said nothing. His lawyer had been clear: silence until they had a strategy, but silence felt like guilt and the whole world was watching. 24 hours ago, he'd been the most trusted aide in Westminster. Now he was accused of something so vile he could barely think the words: sexual assault against his boss's wife, the woman who'd made him tea just 3 days prior, the woman who'd smiled at him across dinner tables, the woman who was now claiming he'd forced himself on her in the family's private residence. It was a lie, but lies told by powerful people have a way of becoming truth. Inside the police station, Jayden sat alone in an interrogation room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. How had it come to this? How had doing the right thing led to the worst moment of his life? The detective entered, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a notepad. "Mr. Karr, I'm Detective Inspector Walsh. I need you to walk me through what happened on the evening of October 14th. Jayden looked at her. "I went to deliver documents. She was there. She made advances. I refused. I left immediately." "That's not what she's saying." "I know. She has messages from you, flirtatious messages. Fabricated or taken out of context. Check my phone records, check the metadata." Walsh studied him. "You seem very calm for someone facing 15 years. "Because I'm innocent. Everyone says that." "I know," Jayden said quietly, "but I actually am." 3 years earlier, Jayden had walked into Westminster for the first time as personal assistant to Richard Ashford, Secretary of State for Digital Infrastructure. It was the culmination of everything he'd worked for. Growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes, he'd learned early that the world didn't owe him anything. So he'd earned it: scholarships, night shifts to pay for university, relentless discipline. When the appointment came, his foster mother cried. "You made something of yourself," she'd said, "against every odd." The job was intense. Ashford was brilliant but demanding. Jayden managed his schedule, prepared briefs, coordinated with other departments, and occasionally stayed late at the Ashford residence to handle sensitive matters. It was there he met Caroline Ashford, Richard's wife. She was elegant, charming, and always interested in Jayden's background. "Foster care to Westminster," she'd said one evening, handing him wine he hadn't asked for. "That's quite the journey." "Hard work," Jayden replied, keeping it professional. "Hard work," she repeated the words like they amused her. "You know what I think? I think you're hungry, not just for success, for recognition, for someone to see you." Jayden had smiled politely and changed the subject. By the end of his first year, he'd earned trust that took others decades to achieve. He had access to classified files. He knew Richard's private schedule. He carried encryption keys for secure communications. Paul, Jasper, and Andy, the 3 senior aides who'd been there for years, watched his rise with mixed reactions. Paul was pragmatic. "You're good at this," he told Jayden over coffee one morning. "Better than most of us, but be careful." "Of what?" "Of getting too comfortable. Power has rules, unspoken ones." Jasper was more cynical. "You think merit matters here? It doesn't. Relationships do. Loyalty, knowing when to look the other way." Andy was the quietest but also the most unsettling. "Caroline likes you," he'd said once, almost as a warning. "She's kind to everyone," Jayden replied. Andy had smiled. "Sure she is." The messages started subtly. Caroline would text about small things: catering for an event, a book recommendation, Richard's favorite wine. Then the messages became more personal. Questions about Jayden's weekend, comments about how impressive he was. One evening she sent, "You work too hard, someone should take care of you." Jayden showed Paul, "What do I do with this?" Paul sighed. "Nothing, delete it, pretend it didn't happen." "That feels wrong." "Jayden, she's the secretary's wife. You have no winning move here. If you confront her, it's awkward. If you report it, you look paranoid. Just avoid being alone with her." But avoiding her became impossible. Richard began sending Jayden to the residence more frequently. "Caroline will let you in. The files are in my study." It felt orchestrated, though Jayden had no proof. One evening in late September, Jayden arrived at the residence to pick up documents. Caroline answered the door in casual clothes, holding a glass of wine. "Richard's not here," she said. "I know, he asked me to grab some files from his study." "Of course, come in." The house felt too quiet, too empty. Jayden went straight to the study, found the files, and turned to leave. Caroline was standing in the doorway. "You're always so professional," she said. "Just doing my job, Mrs. Ashford." "Caroline, please." "Caroline," he moved toward the door, but she didn't step aside. "You know, you remind me of Richard when he was younger, hungry, driven, but Richard's changed. He's comfortable now, complacent." She stepped closer. "I miss hunger." Jayden's pulse quickened. "I should go." "Should you?" Her hand touched his arm. "Or should you stay?" "Mrs. Ashford." "Caroline, I can't." "Why not?" "Because it's wrong, because I respect your husband, because I respect myself." Her expression shifted. For a moment, Jayden saw something dangerous flicker across her face, then she smiled. "You're sweet, too sweet for this world." He left immediately, hands shaking as he drove away. That night he called Paul. "She propositioned me." Paul was silent for a long moment. "What did you do?" "I refused, I left." "Good, now forget it happened." "I can't just forget." "Yes, you can, because if you make this a thing, it becomes a thing, and you'll lose every time." But Jayden couldn't forget. The next few weeks were tense. Caroline was cold whenever they crossed paths. Richard seemed oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant. Then, on October 14th, Richard sent Jayden to the residence one final time. "Caroline says she has some documents I left there. Can you grab them?" When Jayden arrived, Caroline was waiting. The house was empty again, no staff, no Richard. "There are no documents, are there?" Jayden asked. "No." "Why am I here?" "Because I want you to understand something." She stepped closer. "I can make your career or I can end it. You're intelligent, you know how this works." "I know how integrity works." "Integrity?" She laughed. "Integrity doesn't pay rent, it doesn't open doors. It doesn't make you powerful. It lets me sleep at night." "Then you'll sleep alone." Her voice turned cold. "Last chance, Jayden, stay or leave and regret it." "I'm leaving." "Are you sure? Because once you walk out that door, there's no coming back." Jayden walked out. The accusation came 3 days later. Caroline claimed he'd assaulted her during that final visit. She had texts, fabricated or doctored, Jayden never knew which. She had a torn blouse. She had tears, and she had Richard's fury. "How could you?" Richard had shouted when Jayden was brought in for questioning. "I trusted you, I gave you everything. I didn't do this. She's my wife. And she's lying." But Richard didn't want to hear it. Perhaps he couldn't afford to. The scandal would destroy him politically if he sided with Jayden, so he chose her. He always would have. The arrest was humiliating. The media coverage was brutal. Rising star's dark secret. Trusted aide accused of assault. Westminster rocked by scandal. Jayden's face was everywhere, attached to words like predator and abuser. Friends stopped calling. Colleagues distanced themselves. Even Paul, Jasper, and Andy went silent. The case dragged on for months. Jayden's lawyer was optimistic. "The evidence is weak, her story has inconsistencies, we'll get through this." But getting through it meant unemployment, debt, and a reputation in ruins. Even if he was found innocent, the accusation would follow him forever. Eventually, the case was quietly dropped. Insufficient evidence. No charges filed, but there was no apology, no retraction, no acknowledgement that Jayden had been telling the truth. The world simply moved on, leaving him in the wreckage. For 2 years, Jayden survived in the shadows. He couldn't get government work. His name was toxic, so he took consulting jobs, policy research for think tanks, ethics advisory for nonprofits. The work was meaningful but invisible. He rebuilt slowly, carefully, never bitterly. Some nights, alone in his flat, he wondered if integrity had been worth it. But every morning he chose it again. What Jayden didn't know was that Caroline Ashford was collapsing. Guilt is a strange thing. It starts as a whisper and grows into a roar. For Caroline, it began the night Jayden was arrested. She'd watched the news coverage with Richard, seen Jayden's face on every channel, and felt nothing but vindication. He'd rejected her, he'd embarrassed her, he deserved this. But as weeks became months, the vindication curdled. She'd see Jayden's face in her mind, calm, respectful, refusing her not out of disgust but out of principle. She'd remember his words, "Because I respect your husband, because I respect myself." She started drinking more, sleeping less. Richard noticed but attributed it to stress. "The scandal affected all of us," he'd say. She didn't correct him. One night, Caroline searched Jayden's name online. There was almost nothing recent. A few mentions in policy papers, a quiet life, no bitterness, no revenge, just dignity. It made her hate herself more. By the third year, Caroline couldn't bear it anymore. The weight of the lie was suffocating. She'd destroyed a good man to protect her ego, and he'd never fought back, never called her out publicly, never tried to destroy her the way she'd destroyed him. On a Tuesday evening, sitting alone in the same house where it had all begun, Caroline opened her phone. She went to Instagram Live. No plan, no lawyer, just the truth clawing its way out. "My name is Caroline Ashford," she said to the camera, her face pale and drawn. "3 years ago I lied. I accused an innocent man of assault because he rejected me. His name is Jayden Karr, and I destroyed his life for my pride." The internet exploded. Within minutes, the video had thousands of views. Within an hour, hundreds of thousands. News outlets scrambled to verify. Social media erupted. Jayden Karr trended worldwide. People who'd condemned him 3 years ago now demanded justice for him. The narrative flipped in real time. Richard Ashford was in his Westminster office when his assistant burst in. "Sir, you need to see this." She held up a tablet showing Caroline's confession. Richard watched in silence. His face went white. Around him, staff members gathered, whispering. He tried to stand, swayed, and collapsed. The paramedics were called. He'd fainted stress, they said, but everyone knew it was shame. While Richard was in hospital, Jayden received a call. It was from the cabinet office. "Mr. Karr, we need you to come in. There are developments." Jayden knew what it meant. The truth was out. He arrived at Westminster for the first time in 3 years, walking past the same reporters who'd crucified him. This time their questions were different. "How do you feel? Will you sue? What do you want to say?" He said nothing. Inside, he was led to a private office. Richard was there, looking 20 years older. They sat across from each other in silence. Finally, Richard spoke. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything. I should have believed you. You believed your wife. Most people would have done the same." "That's generous." "No," Jayden said quietly, "it's just true." Richard's voice cracked. "Can you forgive me?"
I owe you an apology. I've
Jayden
made
looked
a
at the
mistake,
man who'd
and
once
I'm
been his
truly
mentor,
sorry
who'd
for
chosen
any
his
pain I've
wife's
caused.
lie over Jayden's truth, who'd let him burn to protect his own reputation. He thought about the 3 years of pain, the loneliness, the nights wondering if anyone would ever believe him. "Yes," Jayden said, "I forgive you." Richard wept. The restoration happened quickly. The government issued a formal apology. Jayden was offered his old position back, but he declined. "I'm not the same person I was," he told them. Instead, they offered him something better: senior policy advisor with unprecedented autonomy. Within 6 months, his name was being recommended for deputy governor of the Bank of England. The media wanted interviews, but Jayden gave only one, a brief statement thanking those who'd believed him and forgiving those who hadn't. "I lost years because of a lie," he said, "but I won't lose my heart to bitterness too." Caroline Ashford disappeared from public life. Richard resigned quietly. Paul, Jasper, and Andy reached out with apologies. Jayden accepted without ceremony. If you've made it this far in the story, maybe you're learning too. Hit that subscribe button if you believe integrity matters. Drop a comment telling me about a time you chose what was right over what was easy. And like this video if you want more stories that remind us why character still counts. Because in a world full of compromise, we need reminders that some things are worth protecting, even when it costs us everything. The truth always finds its way home. Sometimes it just takes longer than we'd like.